Ieuan! The mother's voice rose in a piercing cadence. He opened his eyes and blinked sleepily. The room was still in darkness. Ieuan! There was a shrill note of anger in the second call. He felt for the box of matches on the table. The glare blinded him momentarily as he reached over to light the stub of candle. He rubbed his eyes and, reluctantly throwing back the warm blanket, sat heavily down on the edge of the bed. He had not grown much since he had left the elementary school. Still the same narrow shoulders above a body which, though lacking in strength, was sturdy enough. Ieuan! Ieuan! This is the last time I'm calling. If you're not down soon, I'll come up and get you myself. I'm coming, ma'am. With jersey bundled under his arm, he thudded downstairs. Mrs. Morgan, a long, shapeless overcoat covering her nightdress, her hair hanging in two straggling plaits, leant against the table in the gas-lit middle room, a loaf of bread held into the pit of her stomach. Ieuan knelt beside the settle and drew out a pair of tattered sand shoes. Slipping his feet into them, he rolled up his sleeves and hurried to the water tap outside. In the meantime, his father had come down into the kitchen. It took hold even for a cat's lick, Ieuan, he greeted on his return. Come on over here and have a warm. Ieuan blew into his cupped hands and held them over the steaming kettle. He looked at his father. Why are you up so early this morning, Dad? You don't start till 8. Well, this is an important day for you, my boy. The father smiled. I can see that before long you'll be boss in this house, especially when you bring home your first pay. Poor Dad. Trying to be cheerful and making light of what had happened the night before, Ieuan thought. If only he knew that every word of the argument had been overheard. He was just pretending to be jovial and happy, anything for peace and quiet. You look fine, Ieuan. Indeed you do. Listen to your mother now, son, and get ready. It wouldn't be nice for you to be late on your first day. You'll be all right, my boy. Just don't worry about anything. And when I come home tonight, we'll have a good old chat together. See? He smiled and pulled out the table drawer. I've got something for you, Ieuan. A little present to remember the first day you started work. Here you are. From the drawer, he took a broad leather belt with a nickel-plated buckle. Strap it round your waist, my boy, and here's something else to help you. It's a moulder's trowel. A good one, too. I bought it in Jones's on Saturday night. Thought it would be a very useful little present for you. Yes, that's what we do for you, the mother thrust in. Not many boys would be so well looked after, I can tell you. New shirt, new boots, new dungarees, a belt and a trowel. How many boys would have those on their first day, I'd like to know. Aye, a very lucky boy you are. You take it from me. Well, there's no time to waste. Put the trowel in your belt and fetch your overcoat. You'll be all right, Ieuan, the father reassured. He put a hand on his shoulder and patted him affectionately. I'll come to the door and see you off, he whispered. Don't be frightened, boy. It won't be as bad as you think, and believe me, when you come home tonight, you'll be laughing at the nervous little chap who put on his dungarees this morning for the first time. Come on, son, let me hear those new boots of yours marching down the street. So long, Dad. The door slammed. Ieuan gritted his teeth. He drew up his coat collar, and then, slowing down to a walking pace, crossed into the narrow lane bordering the old brewery building at the bottom of the street. Before him, in the distance, at the other end of the lane, he could see the lights of the crowded tramcars as they swayed down the main street to the terminus at Station Square. The wet road lay like a winding river of silver in the moonlight. 2 tin workers came walking tiredly towards him. They had just come off the night shift. Their cloth caps were pushed back from their foreheads, sweat towels hung limply round their throats. The long white canvas aprons which had been crisp and clean the night before, were now scorched and soiled. They dragged their clogged feet along the pavement and stopped to talk every few yards. Their crysau bach, or small sleeveless flannel shirts they had worn during the night shift, were rolled into neat bundles and tucked under their arms. Empty ginger beer bottles slewed out from jacket pockets. Halfway up the street, Ieuan saw Elwyn Price and Danny Derrick. He increased his pace and finally caught up with them. The boys continued down the lower end of Crooked Row. Back lane doors opened. Shadowy figures clutching food packets or tin dixies in their hands merged into the stream of workers. A hooter sounded a plaintive note. The silhouetted twin roofs of the steel and iron foundries, the rounded tower of the cupola, and the shrouded office buildings reared above him as Ieuan approached. Arc lamps swung gently above the main gate and shone into a dark pool directly underneath. On the right was a small red-bricked office with a door at each end. The men in front of him carefully skirted the pool and entered the door nearest the gate. Soon a queue had formed, and with each loud ring of the pegging clock, it moved slowly forward. "Hello, Nipper." Ieuan felt someone touch him on the shoulder. He glanced round. A young man in a red scarf and battered trilby greeted him pleasantly. "Haven't seen you round here before. New here, are you?" "Yes, this is my first day." "What job?" "Apprentice moulder." The young man grinned. "Ah, young sand rat, eh? Where you bound for? Iron or steel?" "Steel foundry." "Good, then you'll see plenty of me. My name's Frank Jones." "Seen the timey yet?" He smiled at Ieuan's confusion. "Timekeeper. He'll give you a pegging number. Listen, don't stand in the queue. Walk into the office and wait there for me. I'll talk to the timey for you." Timekeeper swiveled round on his stool. "Yes, Frankie? Got a new youngster for you. He's to be one of us. Dish out the number for him, will you?" Frank turned to Ieuan. "By the way, what's your name, son?" "Ieuan Morgan." Timekeeper, tall, blear-eyed, with a face wrinkled like dried leather, adjudged Ieuan. "Step over here, good boy." Ieuan stood before him. "Yes, sir." Hey, don't call him sir," Frank said with mock gravity. "He's only the timey." Pritchard frowned. "What did you say your name was, good boy?" And then to Frank, "You'd better get a move on. The hooter's on the blow. And be a bit more respectful next time, will you?" "Yes, sir," Frank grinned. He tossed his head towards Ieuan. "What about showing the youngster the way to the foundry?" Six pairs of eyes watched Ieuan as he stepped into the core shop. On a plank resting on two upturned bricks, 3 men and 3 youths in dungarees sat with their backs against the door of a core drying stove. The eldest of the men, bearded, benevolent-looking, smiled at Ieuan. "So you're the new little boy. Well, come on over here and sit down." He moved to make room for him, and Ieuan sat down timidly. "What's your name, good boy?" "Ieuan Morgan, is it? Nice name indeed. Now, let me introduce you to the other lads who'll be working with you." He turned to a powerfully built youth who sat next to him. "This is Jimmy Jackson, and keep quiet, Izzy." The youth scowled. "One would think we're in bloody Sunday school." He thrust his face close to Ieuan's. "I'm Bull Jackson." He pointed to the old man who had just spoken. "He's Isaiah Charles. Call him Deacon, if you like." "I don't mind." "The fellow with whiskers is Abraham, Chief Sirhand in this dump, and next to him is Dickie." "And what about me?" the youth who sat at the end of the plank inquired. He rose and with a flourish bowed to Ieuan. Name's Reginald Bowen, he mimicked in falsetto. He held out his hand delicately. Now that we have all become so bloody polite, may I say, how do you do, Mr. Morgan? Bull grunted. Put a sock in it, Reg. He pulled the other back to his seat. Reg Bowen, he said to Yeyan, works in the steel shop. And this, he jerked his head towards a pallid-faced, ungainly boy dressed in ragged dungarees. This shrimp is Titus, messenger boy and tea boiler for the whole caboose. The latter leaned forward. Titus, until you know me better. Okay, Titus, Bull sneered. Keep your shirt on and speak when you're spoken to next time. He thumbed to the wall on the far side where a number of coats hung. Shove your coat over there, he commanded Yeyan. He paused. What did you say your name was? Yeyan Morgan. Okay, from now on, you're Iron. We all got names here. You heard mine, didn't you? Bull Jackson's the name. But when you say it, don't try and be bloody clever, see? Thomas showed Yeyan to a corner of the bench, scraped off the dry sand with his trowel. We'll have to go at some fresh compo before we start, he remarked, placing the core box on a smooth, square steel plate. Hand me the quarter riddle over there by the wall. Yeyan picked up a 1/4-inch meshed sieve and waited while Thomas took a shovel from the tall cupboard near the tar bosh. Got a trowel, I suppose? Yeyan proudly exhibited the shining tool. Gee, it's a beauty. Guess we'd better leave it on the bench till we come back from the compost shed, or you might lose it. Will anybody steal it? No, not while Abraham and the others are here. Bull's the only one who'd try any games like that, but we'll be back before him. Just then, Bull swaggered into the shop. Making a pretense of buttoning his trousers, he cast a sidelong glance at the bogey. Have a good look, Thomas grunted. The work's done. Funny you always get caught short when the tarring job's to do. Bull waited until Abraham's back was turned. He tapped his head significantly. Up here you want it, he sniggered, and that's just where you haven't got it. You ought to go to night school, Tommy. He strode to the bench and pushed the steel plate aside. I'm working here, he announced, so go look for another place. His eyes fell on the new trowel. Ah, nice job this. Yeyan watched him apprehensively. That's mine, he blurted. Did I say it wasn't? Bull tossed the trowel to a corner of the bench. Better keep an eye on it, else it'll walk. Know what I mean? You keep your paws off it, Bull Jackson, Thomas snapped. He nudged Yeyan. Come on, let's go to the compo so we can make a start. Unperturbed, Bull pretended to carry on with his work. As he leaned over the bench to scoop a handful of sand into his core box, he brushed against the new trowel. Glancing swiftly around while Yeyan and Thomas were on their way to the compost shed, he quickly daubed a swab of tar under the handle. Hey, Iron, he called, holding the trowel by the blade. Take this thing with you. If you leave it here, somebody might take a fancy to it. Yeyan reached for the tool. Oh, thanks. His fingers closed over the handle. Bull smirked at the look of bewilderment on his victim's face. Just a trademark, something to remember me by. Yeyan placed the trowel gingerly on the bench. Gluttonous mess of tar stuck to his fingers. He looked beseechingly at the grinning Bull. Why did you do it? I've done nothing to you, have I? Bull shrugged. All in a day's work, Iron. You'll get more than that before you're through. Inside the steel foundry, the atmosphere was gloomy and oppressive. Below the high saddled roof, a row of 20 globes was strung. A pale greenish-white light shone down on the men, transforming them into strange, unearthly creatures. Green-faced gnomes, dwarfed by the towering steel girders and massive moulding boxes. A world of green, a new and weird world of grim, dark shadows and frenzied activity, of conflicting sounds varying from the roar and thunder of overhead gantries, the sharp, shrill staccato beat of automatic hammers, to the echoing ring of steel upon steel and the hollow wheeling and thumping of the hydraulic moulding machines. The windows in the high wall were covered with a thick layer of soot. 2 heavy cranes tracked along the steel girders, the crane men crouching low over their gears, vague and indistinct. With each jolt, the girders shook and a fine shower of black snow drifted gently down on the workers below.